Welcome to the Blueprint for Men podcast. We are looking at a part 2 here of an update for the ministry. Our last podcast got a little bit cut short. Plus, Marty was about to head out the door. Literally, we were recording the night before he was headed off to a wilderness trek that I just got an update on this morning as we were in our daily prayer call. And so if you want to share any of that, you are welcome to, Marty. But we're going to pick up where we left off from last time. We have a couple items left to just talk about with our ministry update. It would have probably been a really much longer episode as well. So we figured a part 2 was a good thing. We're kind of rested now and ready to finish up this conversation about what's going on in the ministry up to now and then where the things are going. So any place you want to start, Marty, between what you just did or perhaps... Sure. What we want to start with in our discussion.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think that what really, when we think of the mission of this ministry, it's a Christ-centered, relationship-based men's ministry that helps men succeed and lead in every area of life. So anyway, what really to me that involves is anytime you get guys together, whether it's 2 guys, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 10, 12, like a disciple group, guys grow when they're in community. So we just got back. Every year, usually I take a group or part of a group that heads into a remote area. So we just got back from climbing what's called Granite Peak. And Granite Peak is the highest point in Montana. It's 12,799 feet. 1 foot short of the 800-foot mark. But anyway, we went out there just on a Wednesday. Like Mike said, on Tuesday, we were recording our latest episode of this podcast, and then the next morning got up, flew out to Bozeman, Montana, immediately rendezvoused with the rest of our group. There were 5 of us that came from, Idaho and Tennessee primarily. Most of us were pretty experienced. This mountain is fairly technical. In fact, I don't know if you guys know much about high points in the United States, but out of the 50 high points, 50 states, of course, Denali is number 1 by far at 20,320 feet. I have not climbed that particular mountain. It was an ambition of mine earlier in life, but I don't know that I'm going to take that on. I'm sure I could do it if I really pushed and wanted to, but the desire is not quite as strong as it used to be. But anyway, this particular mountain, Granite Peak, is either number 2 or 3. It's in the top 5 as far as difficulty. Mount Rainier is 14,410 feet, and it is near Seattle. That is one of the most difficult. It's got 10,000-foot vertical relief. And then there is also Granite Peak, which is in the Rocky Mountains, is 13,000 plus 810 feet. Anyway, it's very remote, got long distance. You got to use crampons, ice axes. It's pretty tough. I would classify it number 3. And Granite Peak, because of its technical nature and the distance and the rugged just trail getting in there, I would rate it number 4. And I'm not sure where it's at after that. But I've done all those other ones except for Denali, and this was very challenging. But I just really, it's part of my life experience. I love the mountains, and I do believe that it's something that most men, at least from a distance, they enjoy looking at a mountain. Some people feel compelled to climb a mountain. But what I like about the mountaineering experience is the amount of planning that it takes. You have to have a team to do it safely, and then you have a definitive endpoint. That's really what's so unique, Mike, about a mountain climbing thing, is whether you made the top or not. So many things in life, it's kind of like you're attempting to do something, but what level of success did you have? So anyway, that was a long ramble about this particular mountain, but we had 5 of us. And one in particular, he's been in our men's groups for quite a while. Shout out to Xavier Pinero. He made it to the top. It was really the first mountain he'd ever climbed, and it was tough. He's got a condition in which he struggles with breathing. and anyway, it was really simulating probably climbing a 18 or 20,000 foot peak for him. So
Wow.
kudos to him and just our whole group. On the way out, our leader, actually, Doug Brown, a good friend of mine, a lot of loose rock. He had about a 300-pound boulder that rolled over his foot as he was coming down, trapped his foot. It just turned his foot into a pretzel. We thought he had broken bones. We were able to get him down to a glacier where we called in a helicopter, and he was plucked off the mountain and taken to a hospital where he's okay. But it was a pretty epic experience, to say the least. But I really encourage guys to do things that are challenging. Get you outdoors. God created us to experience those kind of things. And so that is a short-term group. Most groups we have, go for a long time. This group was together just for 4 days, and really, really neat group. Ages 22 to me, the old guy, 65.
You were the old guy.
Yeah, but I did all right, considering
You were
my
worried
age.
about it. I remember you voicing your little concerns because you had an injury earlier this summer.
Yeah, just my back had gotten strained on another climb I did in July. But anyway, life moves on, and you go to the chiropractor.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, I don't want to make this a mountaineering hiking podcast, but one of the things I've learned about hiking, I've done of the 58 14ers here in Colorado, I've hiked 26 of them. And I've learned that I really believe that we are capable of more than we give ourselves. I think we can push ourselves pretty far. And I'm thinking, for a couple of summits I've done, I pushed myself pretty much to my limit. But I also think there were places where I'm pretty sure I could have pushed myself further. And I think another piece to what this group that you did was that I haven't done it too much myself. I mean, I guess I had with my son. I only had a little bit more experience than my son, but we both got the same hiking experience in Colorado at the same time. But I like the idea of having someone like a guide or someone like you who've been on the mountains for as long as somebody like Xavier has been alive, and mountain climbing and hiking. I don't know, Xavier, how many times you've climbed a mountain, but it's a great group experience to have someone who maybe this is their first time and it's a really cool adventure, but it's also a little bit scary because you don't know what's coming. And yet you have somebody like you, Marty, who's done this a lot, where you can say, yeah, this is not going to be easy, but it's going to be very rewarding when you do get to do it. And not to mention along the way, you can, push somebody. You can do this. I still remember when we were in our Grand Canyon expedition, I decided to climb up this, I don't even know what that thing was, some kind of slide, and I almost gave up. And Ashley down below was yelling up there, "You got this, Mike. You've got this. You've got what it takes." And I'm like, I think so. I felt like going all the way back down because my legs were giving out and they were shaking. But I made it. It was funny too. Doug, the same Doug, he crawled up that thing like a spider. I remember watching him do it from down below, and I'm like, that looked easy, but it wasn't easy. Same ideas that I wouldn't have been able to do that by myself, not with somebody having a rope around my waist and then somebody at the top helping me along. So I don't know. It's a great experience. It's a simple, I think, life application that I hope more guys can get, mountaineering and hiking. And you're right. Whether you made it to the top or not. So
many things in life are a little bit more fuzzy on the end point. You did it, but did you succeed?
Right.
That was a question I had with some of my friends when I went backpacking in Colorado. We were doing a 50-year reunion backpack trip to the San Juans out just north of Durango. And I think I've touched on this before in another podcast. But anyway, 50 years is a long time. I was only 14 when I did that the first time. But, I asked him the first time around the campfire, first night out, I just asked, guys, we're at a place where we're looking back in life. Has your life been successful? And that's kind of an intimidating question. Yep. But I love the small group dynamic where you can have these deeper conversations. And I think that most guys really want to have those. And so at the end of this climb of Granite Peak, when we came down and we were eating a pizza, it's funny how
it tastes
pizza
so good
is,
when Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So we're eating a pizza, and I'm just posing a question, about, you know, it was kind of interesting. We had five of us, and I know we're going again into a dynamic that's not just a ministry report, but if you're listening to this, I hope that, some of these side stories are helpful. But there were five in this group, and you know how we use the hand as an illustration for team building and
Yep.
prayer and a lot in this ministry. But I felt like in our group, we had one guy that was a thumbs up guy. He was a guy that initiated this whole trip. Then, and that was Franklin Farrow. And then I had Doug Brown. He was the leader. He was the guide. He had the greatest skill level. He had studied this out the most. And so he was the finger of direction. And then the zinger finger, we had a young man by the name of Dylan. He's from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Really strong guy. In fact, when we were getting the rock off of Doug's foot, this boulder, like 300-pound, he was up on top of the boulder, uphill a little bit, pulling the boulder, and I was down below pushing it up. I think we had a little adrenaline going. We got it off of his foot with some effort, but anyway, Dylan, he's a tough guy. He's actually training to be in special forces type, Marine. But anyway, then the next was me. I'm kind of the ring finger guy. I've just been doing this for a long time, and I'm not going to quit. And then we had Xavier, and Xavier had, these physical challenges going on, and yet together, when we came together, we succeeded. And it was just really cool. But where I was going with this is, as we were reflecting on the trip, I think everybody affirmed that analogy of what role we played and that everybody was important in our success. But then the other thing was asking them, what mountains were they facing as they left the climb. We're going back home. What mountains are you facing? And those are the kind of questions that we can ask in a small group and really have some very reflective conversations
Oh yeah.
that I wouldn't share in this kind of a context. But I'm
Well,
just telling you, it's guys need those kind of deep conversations that you're known. I think
yes.
that's really what it's about, being known by other men that are in your corner, that are going to pray for you and encourage you. So it was just really a rich experience. And guys, if you've never done that kind of thing, you need to.
Yeah, and in a small group. So this is the perfect segue, Marty, because
Yeah.
that's where we're going to be going next with our ministry update. If
Right.
people don't know, there are a lot of groups that Blueprint has,
Yeah.
different types of groups, different purposes. And there are groups that meet locally. I think most of the local groups are either they're in your area, or there's at least one I know of where Tom lives out on the West Coast. There isn't one here yet, but there will be here in Colorado. But most groups, as far as I've experienced, have been online. So I wonder if you could tell guys who don't know much about how many groups or types of groups there are about the group structure. And you're right, all the benefits that you just said, that's what happens in a small group, a good small group that's led and
Right.
facilitated well.
Right. Yeah. What happened with the pandemic when it hit back in 2020, I think everybody started experiencing the opportunities that were available through online, platforms like Zoom. We use Zoom. There's others that could be used, but nevertheless, that really expanded the reach of this ministry. I think people just said, hey, I don't have to drive anywhere. I can connect with Mike. He's in Colorado. I'm in Tennessee. Tom, he's in California. We can all get on a Zoom call. We've got people in other countries like Rudy. He's down in Colombia, down in Medellin. We've got guys Zooming in from even England. So opportunities have actually increased with the virtual platforms. It's not as good as face-to-face, I'll be honest, because there's something about being in the same room.
Yep.
But compared to, it's kind of like Mount Everest. That would be the ultimate goal for a mountaineer. I'm going to get the tallest mountain in the world. Well, small group, it's, together in one place. That's kind of the ultimate.
Yeah.
But nothing wrong with climbing a 14er in Colorado, right?
Right.
Nothing wrong with having a connection online. We need to seek opportunities to give different on-ramps for guys. Otherwise, if there's only Mount Everest to climb, nobody's going to be climbing
Well,
it.
yeah, it's to me, it's the being alone or having a community. And if
Yep.
it's an online community, well, then it's better than no community. And
Yep.
so you and I have been a part of both through the years, either one. And yeah, I do prefer in person. And I was just this last week talking to another guy in my actual congregation. For the first time, we're talking about how can we get men's ministry started more intentionally in our congregation. And we just both acknowledged that the church itself is spread out pretty geographically with guys having very busy lives. And what can we do? And I said, well, hey, a virtual group. And then we could have a hybrid where we have, get together once every 5 or 6 weeks or something.
Exactly.
That would make getting together even more significant or even more meaningful.
Right.
If you can all gather or something like that.
There's so many different ways to think about this. I know a guy that's in Texas named Tom Grove. He's actually put together a resource. Maybe we could put this in the links. It's a monthly meeting. That's the way they set it up. But it was reading a particular book each month. I mean, it took a real commitment because of the amount of reading. But they got together for 4 hours.
In person?
In person on a Saturday
Wow.
afternoon. So it wasn't that they met very frequently, but when they met, it was for a chunk of time, and it was around food. And it really, he said, was a good format because when you're together for a longer period of time, some things move in a direction that won't happen in a short amount of time.
I like that. That's a good idea. If you,
Yeah.
let's make sure we get a link to at least what that information is. Is he like saying this is what we do in Texas? You can, here's how we do it, and you can duplicate it wherever you are?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at. He put this material together a few years ago. It's called Joshua's Men, I believe.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah, we'll put that in our notes.
Yeah, and he's actually going to be at the upcoming men's retreat here in Georgia. And so I look forward to meeting him. Great guy. And again, this is not a cookie cutter thing. If
Nope.
somebody has an initiative, do it. When I was out in Colorado several years ago, I met a pastor that was up. He was pastoring in Gillette, actually, Wyoming. And he said, I've got a guy at my church that I think would really do well with, leading our men's ministry. I'm going to give you his contact information. So I reached out to this guy, and he actually was a mechanic, had lived in Gillette most of his life. He's a man's man, big dude, knows how to work on 4x4s and guns, you name it. He's a Wyoming dude, And so we got on the phone and started talking, and he said, it sounds pretty simple to me. So he got access to some men's ministry videos that we have on RightNow Media, and he started going through 33 of the series. He just invited guys, not even part of his church, guys he knew from his shop, and like a dozen guys came to his house. They'd eat a little food, watch a video, take some notes, discuss things. And, I don't know if he's doing that anymore. I haven't talked to him in a little while. But he actually came out to our retreat here in Georgia. And it was the first time he'd ever done anything like that. He roomed with me, actually. I shared a motel room with him. But, he took the initiative. And he said, this isn't that hard. Watch a video, eat some food, and hang out with some guys and talk about life. And it was really meaningful. So many different ways to go on this.
Oh, I know. So what are the different types of groups that Blueprint has right now that guys can plug into? You mentioned RightNow Media as a resource.
Yeah, and we'll start there because what I find with guys, we have good intentions. And let's say you join a group that you're going to have to read a book. Okay, what I find is a lot of guys struggle with just getting enough time or making it a priority to read. Reading is not something they enjoy. And so it eliminates a lot of guys right off the bat. So we're thinking of on-ramps is really what we're doing for guys. We're trying to say, what is a way to engage guys so they start the growth process? If the step up is too high, it might prevent them from starting. So if you just sit down with a group of guys and watch a video, I would say that's the best way to go. So if you go to our groups page, it's the first group type is what's called manhood education. Because most of us were not really taught by our dad or other men how to be godly men. We have a lot of deficits. So to be able to actually start learning by just watching a video and having some experts talk in very engaging ways where you take some notes, you handle some questions at the end that are reflective. Most guys are stuck in one way or another in their journey, and there's some frustration. And the only way you can move forward, like if you're in a vehicle and you get into snow that's too deep or mud that's too deep, you got to back up to get out. And most guys have never really done that unless they've gone to some counseling. And a lot of guys aren't going to go to counseling because it's expensive. So this is a very inexpensive way to process life and have other guys say, you know, I've experienced something like that too. And you get a lot of encouragement. Most guys are discouraged, and when you get with other guys and open up and talk about the common themes of life, you realize you're not alone and that you can make it through this. So I think that is the on-ramp that I would recommend any man that's considering starting a small group. Start with a video-based course, and we have many of them. The one at the very bottom of the groups and resources is probably one of the best to start with, actually. It's called Better Man, and Better Man is only 11 sessions, so you could get through it in a quarter, and all of the resources are online for free. The videos are online for free, and they're like 15 to 20 minutes, and they are done really well. The PDF documents for each lesson are there you can print out. So I would recommend that or one of those other resources. Check them out. And if you need to talk to myself or Mike or Tom, we're available to connect with you guys. But manhood education, I really believe, is the best place to start.
It's something I wish I would have had 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And as you and I have talked, like what I'd like to do is you and I just talked this morning about this because I had this conversation with this guy last week in my church. And you mentioned Better Man, and I'm looking at it. I've already looked at it, and the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. So I'm going to send that to him as well. But what I was going to also ask, I think you mentioned RightNow Media. So if you connect with Blueprint, you can get access to RightNow Media. And if you don't know what RightNow Media is, it's a huge library of almost any Christian topic you can think of from so many different experts and people and out there who've poured their lives into these topics. And you can it's a ton of great material that you can consume in there. And I haven't looked to see exactly what would be consumed in terms of for manhood education or for men specifically, but I know it's a category. But if you do connect with Blueprint, you have that access.
Right. And it's free. We pay for a subscription. It's for a church or a ministry organization like ours. So you can't just get on there and have access. So that's what's unique about it. Yeah.
Yep.
And I tell you, you can, there's an app you can download on your smartphone. You can listen without watching. Then it's more like a podcast. And like Mike said, there's experts. I don't know if any of you that are listening have ever read the book called Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend. Well, Henry Cloud, he has a whole bunch of videos on there that really help with everything from marriage to, just going through life, trying to deal with narcissists, you name it. Just tremendous amount of information from top leaders, authorities in these areas.
So, excuse me.
That's right.
What's kind of the history of small groups then in the of Blueprint for Men?
Well, really, that's how I started. I remember hearing about Promise Keepers and these big gatherings, and I just didn't have any desire to be part of some big gathering like that at a football stadium. So what really got me is I had a friend that just said, "Hey, we've got a men's group that's going to be meeting At this time, it was actually during a Saturday morning, Sabbath school time. And so I said, yeah, I can do that. Our kids were out of the house at that point. I didn't have any obligations. And my wife, she liked to go to a women's group. So we actually started going to separate classes. She went to a women's group. I went to a men's group. And I went through what's called men's fraternity. It was a very robust course. It was 60 sessions. It took several years to go through, actually. Wow. But I realized how much I didn't know about being a man of God, a better husband, father, and everything. And yet, you know, my kids are already out of the house. And a lot of my passion for men's ministry came out of this desire for so many of my students that had graduated and were on into their adult phase of life, raising children who didn't have the knowledge to succeed, to reach out to them and to get them plugged into these resources and to get into small groups. Because if there is a demographic that I'm most passionate about, Mike, is that 25 to 45-year-old guy that's raising a family. He's in the fight, and he needs a lot of support and direction.
So you started off with small groups there just locally as a Sabbath school for a men's group. And then as you started the ministry, I assume you based a lot of it on small groups.
Yeah, and a lot of video-based stuff. I found that there was an ease of access with that. And we got that subscription to RightNow Media early on, and that's been a tremendous resource. We have thousands of men and even women that access this platform.
Okay. So what are the different categories of groups that Blueprint is utilizing right now or has right now?
Yeah, well, we've got, like I said, manhood education, and that's really the one that I would encourage any man that's just checking it out to just start looking at those resources and think, hey, all I got to do is get 3, 4, 5 guys together and watch this. You can watch it independently and then come together in your Zoom group and talk about the questions and whatever. You can even watch it together online. There's that feature with Zoom that you can do that as a group thing. So we've got all the technology and resources. If you have a struggle with that, we'd be glad to help as we can, or ask a teenager. But
yeah, right.
So that is really what we recommend on the front end. Now, as you move down into different content, there's going to be a higher level of expectations. You're going to have to spend some time outside of it. And in fact, let me back up. With the manhood education, one thing that you're supposed to do is put together a manhood plan. And that means you're looking at your life in these different categories, and you put together a plan to deal with the past. Maybe you've had a bad relationship with your father, and you need to kind of clean that up. Maybe you need to write a letter to him. Maybe he's died, and you still need to forgive him in your heart, right? So that's all part of a manhood plan. But then when you get into, say, a lot of guys need more discipline in their life. So I mentioned last time the Morning Summit program that's a quarterly habit builder for a small group. That's a really good resource. We've got another thing that we find out as guys start opening up, they start realizing that they have some dark areas of their life. They need deep counseling. There may be an addiction going on. So what we have found to be universal, you just read in the Bible, the biggest trip up for most men is in the area of sexual infidelity. And pornography has made such inroads in the Christian church, even pastors. It's available. So we have groups that help with that, and then we call those men of integrity. We've got groups that are listed online. Please take advantage of those guys, because I'm telling you, I know that both Mike and I, we've had this issue in our lives, very much open about sharing that, and just because it's such a common thing, 70-80% of guys are struggling this. So to not talk about it is to really be kind of derelict on duty as leaders. So I'm just telling you, it will make a huge difference in your life if you address that. I don't know if, Mike, you want to talk about that in particular, because I know that you've really even built some of your own resources, and you might want to make a plug for that. We need to probably list that on our website.
I can. I don't mind being self-promotion on that, although I hesitate sometimes too. But I will say, I've been in this area for a couple of years now, and I realized earlier this spring that I need to have a group of guys around me to talk about this on a regular basis, because the nature of what I was doing was by myself a lot, and I didn't like that, and it wasn't serving me at all. And so I really needed to make sure that I had this group accountability to my own self for it. And it was just exactly what I've said in the groups myself, is this just little bit of accountability was exactly what I needed just to keep myself on this road. I've come across guys in these groups where the accountability isn't always working. And so it's a matter of staying consistent for sure. But it's at the same time, we've got it structured. Tom did a great job, and he's done a great job constructing and building these. In fact, we should ask him about some of the different types of groups that we have. And he's runs all of these, as far as I know. And he's built the structure around them to where you were asking questions about how you feeling right now. Did you work on these steps? Because we build this around the Sexaholics Anonymous 12 steps. And so I'm working on step 4 at the moment. And you try to get very specific and personal. And one of the pieces that I think, this is like in general for small groups, for any kind of group, is guys need to feel safe. And a lot of that, I wouldn't even say a lot of it, maybe 99% of that has to come down to the right leadership of a group, where a group that's run and facilitated well is a place where guys can feel safe to be able to talk about stuff, because we don't normally feel safe talking about what's going on the inside in too many contexts, really, even in marriage, unfortunately.
Exactly.
And to be able to have that context, to be able to bring up things like sexual purity, which is not always easy to talk about. Then there's the other extreme of guys who can't stop talking about stuff like that. And so, again, good leadership helps facilitate a good conversation when it comes to a group. But that's been very helpful for me. I'm not going to stop that anytime soon. But I'll be doing, again, some of my own stuff with my own curriculum that I had built. And I have another dream beyond that, but I don't need to go into that here. But that's been probably the most consistent group I've been a part of. I know I was initially, when I first started connecting with you guys after the first retreat that I went to and then the expedition, I stayed in touch and was going to the Sabbath school on Sabbath mornings. It's 7:30 Eastern a.m.
Right.
For me, it's super early on a Saturday morning, Sabbath morning, 5:30. But I know that's probably, I don't know if that's your biggest group that you have, because I remember seeing a few dozen guys on the Zoom before we'd break into our breakout groups sometimes.
Yeah, no, we during the pandemic, we had a group that was meeting on Saturday mornings. We found from 7:30 to 9 Eastern time was a time that worked. And, you still have time when you finish with that to go to with your wife or with family to go to regular Sabbath school and church service. And it was a good place, especially for guys that probably had kids out of the house. Anyway, it was in person, and then it went to hybrid, where we've got half the guys meeting in person, probably about up to 15, 20 guys, and then another 15, 20 guys online. So, it's our biggest group. We call it Verdux. It's Latin for leading men. And, that's a really important part of our ministry.
I also, for guys who are interested in participating in any of these groups, I know they're run through Church Center, the app, the website as well. So if you do want to connect to any of these groups, there's a way to connect in Church Center. And you have to you got to get it initiated with Tom Pike, I think, is how it works. Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on that, because he's the small group coordinator for the ministry.
Exactly.
But he'll get you connected into a group and show you how to find Blueprint for Men within Church Center. And it's not overly complex, but if you haven't done it before, there are steps that you just don't intuitively get. So check out how to reach, I think, what is his email? tom.pike@blueprintformen.org? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to Tom on that and wants to, you can check. We'll make sure that there's a link in the show notes for the groups, all the different kinds of groups, including the Men of Integrity. The Men of Integrity group with the sexual purity is on Monday nights, the online ones. I can't tell you the in-person times, but there's Monday nights. That's where I started. And then Tom and I are co-leading the Wednesday nights that has more of the Western time zones covered as well on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. So that's 6 o'clock Pacific. And the East Coast is 7 o'clock Eastern Time on Mondays for the Men of Integrity. So, but if those are the ones I can name off the top of my head, I know Verdux is on Sabbath morning, and then there's others that are happening. But if you know of any others, but again, if guys are interested in joining any of these groups, you can work through it and you can connect with Tom Pike to get you connected into Church Center.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really am a big advocate of relationship building, and Tom's super at that. So if you go to our group's webpage, it lists on every one of these, pretty much reach out to Tom Pike, schedule an appointment. He's got a calendar scheduler, text him. That's probably the best thing to do, honestly. Just text him. We've his phone number there. But reach out, take that personal step. You'll be glad you did. He makes it really comfortable, and he'll spend the time with you. And once we find that when a man has somebody invest in his life, there's a much greater chance of him taking the next steps. So,
definitely.
Yeah. So beyond those kind of groups, there's leadership development groups, and I think we touched on those last time. But we have the Men's Leadership Academy. So if any of you guys are men's ministry leaders at a church level, and you just feel a little bit alone, you're not sure where to start, and you need just some connecting points, once a month, it's the fourth Tuesday of the month, is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time is when we have that. I know it's not super convenient for people on the West Coast. We're going to try to get another session set up that will accommodate those time zones as well. And then we have what's called Men's Leadership Council, and that's more for pastors and men that are at a conference level that need that association as well and encouragement. We tend to cover a lot of the same topics. What I find, and this is just the way it is whether somebody is a men's ministry leader at an organizational level or at the church level, a lot of the teaching needs to be done. Most men's ministry leaders at the higher level have not had the training and the encouragement that can make a difference.
Yeah, especially when it comes to men. When we talk about what we can do in the local church, it's not just another set of lessons for Bible studies. It's teaching that's specific to men and specific to men's issues. I think that's so important to differentiate that. And it's not just that we're having a group of guys, discussing Bible topics. I've been in so many discussions that they just stay surface level, kind of theological or even, theoretical. And, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, at least.
Yeah. I mean, it's the left brain, right brain thing.
I know. Yes.
Most of the theological stuff will stay over here in the left brain information, and over here is really the hunger of a man's soul.
Yeah.
And he's not getting that fed, so he's kind of lopsided. But I find that most guys, when they experience that, even though they may be reluctant at first, they go. I mean, I know guys in their 70s that have said, "This is the most meaningful thing I've experienced in my time in church." These guys have been in church all their life. And they say, this is the most impactful thing that's happened to me. To be known by other men talking about life, having men pray for each other. It's powerful. It's transformational. It's God's design.
Yeah.
So a couple of other things I want to mention out, because this isn't listed as a group on our groups page, but mentoring and coaching, basically one-on-one type stuff, I think it's really one of the most simple ways to start a men's ministry. You as a man, if you just reach out to other guys, take them to lunch, meet up at a coffee shop, it doesn't really matter. Just ask good questions about their life. And as they open up and you talk, you share from your own life, and you start forming friendships is really what it amounts to. and you're investing in another man and praying for that guy. Again, I talk to guys all the time, and it's rare that anybody does that kind of a thing. So be intentional, like you said, Mike.
Yeah, for sure. So what other parts of the ministry would you like to share any updates on when it comes to what we're doing?
I think that, the ministry, it started out just as a local, Chattanooga area ministry, but it just keeps kind of spreading out over time as calls come in. I had a men's ministry, well, he's personal ministries director in the East Central Africa Division over in Kenya. He reached out to me and he said, "Hey, we're wanting to get something started here. Couldn't find a whole lot of resources within our church. What can you tell me? How can you help?" So we worked together and put together a curriculum for the East Central Africa Division. It was 12 modules, and it was really kind of a pilot. But we did the training virtually. A couple of our guys, Tom and Rick, went over and actually did a Maranatha project and actually met up with them. And they've got about 4.5 million Seventh-day Adventist members in the East Central African Division. And a lot of issues there are different than here in the United States, of course, different cultural differences. But in the end, men are men. And a lot of struggles are the same: finances, marriage, having a walk with God, sexual integrity. All of these things are common. So those things have come out of the blue. Another one is a young man from Pakistan reached out to me a number of years ago. I checked him out because, there's a lot of people out there trying to take advantage. But I checked out all of his degrees from the Seventh-day Adventist Seminary there in Pakistan. Got to form a relationship, and my wife and I decided to start supporting him financially, a little bit every month. And over the years, it's increased to the point that right now we support him and his wife entirely financially. And he's doing a great work in Pakistan, which is a difficult country to spread the gospel, basically. And he's specifically reaching out to men, but he's doing it through some very novel approaches. So I hope to get him on a podcast here not too long from now. But those are just some of the kind of things, and we could go on a lot of other tangents. A couple of other groups I want to mention is the outdoor group. We've got a consortium of people from all over the country that are coming together to try to team up to provide more outdoor experiences for dads, for their kids, for men that need to just embrace that vitality. And then we also have a ministry that we're really haven't quite kicked off to the level that we should, and that's our Helping Hands ministry here as well at this facility.
Nice. And various networking. I know the networking happens at the retreats, and this is the retreat season here this fall.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of guys look forward to. I know I'm looking forward to meeting a bunch of guys that I've connected with just online in the last couple of years here this next week, actually. Yeah. And so that's going to be pretty cool for me, whereas I was meeting everybody for the first time 2 years ago. So this is another neat thing about what Blueprint for Men can offer as the footprint grows too, to have these different networking events for guys to just be able to be around other guys, if not on a regular basis, that just know at least that there are other men who want to make a difference for the men in their church and our church in general.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that when it comes to this networking, I would really say that Blueprint for Men, if it's the simplest way it is a network. It's a network of men that are passionate about growing in their relationship with Christ, but especially in the context of leading in their home and in their workplace and just becoming a man of God. We're not getting it in the church as far as there's not a Sabbath school quarterly on being a man.
Right.
There's just no place that you can get tooled up to be the man God's calling us to be. Men's ministry is a vehicle to do that. And I don't know of any man that can't benefit from it. I don't care if you're a conference president or, just a regular guy. We all need to grow.
I agree. And and especially guys who are in the trusted leadership positions. I think it's also, for these guys to have a place that is also safe for them as well. I think that would be a great advantage to something like joining up with something like Blueprint for Men, to be able to say that they can have a good conversation that's not job related. It's not just related on, what are they preaching on over the next quarter or whatever. What is going on the inside, and how can we help each other? So any more updates you'd like to share with our audience on the ministry?
Oh, I'm sure that there could be a lot more. I know that, when it comes to needs, I just want to touch on needs, because really, if you're going to go on a journey, guys, I don't care whether you drive an electric car or a diesel truck, you need fuel. You got to be able to move down the road. And for a ministry or a business of any kind, you have to have money. And we have been able to survive for 10 years based on the generosity of many family, friends, ministry partners from all over the world. And so if you've listened to this message this long, because it's a long message, we're sharing a lot here, is that if you've never given, consider donating and supporting this ministry. It's very easy to find the donate button on our website. You can do it electronically in a secure way. If you want to give on a regular basis, maybe $100 a month or something like that, or $20 a month, it doesn't really matter. We would just really appreciate that for sure. And for those that have given over the years, we can't thank you enough. You're the wind beneath our wings. God's used you in a mighty way, and so many men have been impacted. So thanks.
Well, this has been the update for the Blueprint for Men Part 2. So I'm sure we'll update more as we record some more episodes. But thanks, Marty, for updating everybody on what's going on. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate we've got this Marty and Mike thing going, and I appreciate your teaming up with me. And just to make a little plug for Rudy Escobar, he's down in Colombia, Medellin, Colombia, and he does our video editing, actually. So we've got a nice team here, and but we could use more guys that might have some skills. So if you feel prompting from God, you look at our website and go, I could probably make that better, please reach out. If you've got a skill for video editing, reach out. If you'd like to plan an event and you just need to talk and say, hey, we're going to plan an event, we're here. We would love your help. We can't do it alone. Isn't that right, Mike? It's just It's impossible. There's just the text that comes to mind is, a harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So if God is calling you, reach out. We could use every man to do a greater work. So thanks for listening, being part of this podcast. I don't know if you have anything else, Mike, but if not, we're signing off.
No, I'm good to go. Appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. God bless. And why don't I just pray out this end of the show?
Sure.
Father in heaven, thanks so much for Mike. Thank you for his partnership. Thank you for each man that might have listened to the entire show. There's a lot here. It's a conversation. A couple of guys talking about their experience. My experience is very long with this ministry. I still feel like I'm continuing to learn. Life is just not long enough. Without your help and inspiration and direction, nothing would be accomplished. And we thank you for your promises being sure to be with us always. And so right now, as we enter into the busy fall season where there's retreats and all kinds of events going on, I pray that you'll be with me in particular. I've just got a lot that it's crushing on me. I'd covet any man that is hearing this to pray for me. I know that I'm tired right now, but you will be the energy that I need, Lord. Continue to sustain me and everybody as we go through each day, each week, each month. Maybe we be more like you, the blueprint for men. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. God bless.
All right. Take care. See you guys.